Jared with 5 on the play clock takes the ball back, looking, throwing middle. It's caught. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's gone, baby. 10-5, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions. Goff to St. Brown, 27 yards, and the Lions strike first.
It is week 9 of the NFL season. That's crazy, isn't it?
I cannot believe it. It's flying by.
I am Tim Twentyman. This is Twentyman the Huddle podcast, and this week I am joined by Colton Pouncy. He does a great job with The Athletic. Had a great piece in September. Got with all the Lions management about a pact they made, and kind of have stuck to that. Most recently, he did a breakdown of Kevin Seifert and John Morton's stuff, so you can check out all his stuff on The Athletic. Also does the Lions Collective podcast, so you got a lot going on.
Yeah, it's been a busy season, but it's always a lot of fun.
Bye week, did you get a chance to get away a little bit? We always talk about the players and coaches needing a little time, but the beat guys sometimes need a little reset and rest too. Did you get away at all?
Absolutely. It's important to us too. I did get away. I went to Chicago. I grew up like Chicago suburbs, so got to see my family. My parents are out there. A lot of friends. One of my best friends just had a baby a month ago, so I got to meet her. So it was a good time. Nice and relaxing.
Cubs or White Sox?
I'm a Cubs guy.
All right,
Cubs guy.
My dad grew up on the north side, so I'm a Cubby guy too. So that makes my heart feel good that you were a Cubs guy. All right, let's look back to Tampa Bay real quick. What jumped out about that game to you? Positive, negative. Obviously, it was a great win. Probably more positive. But what did you come out of that game kind of liking about this team heading into the bye?
Yeah, I think going into that one, you're looking at the depth chart, especially in the secondary, and you're like, oh man, this could be a little rough, right? Like Tampa Bay has some really good receivers. Mike Evans and Ibuka were playing in that one, and you saw the Lions secondary with the injuries and Brian Branch getting suspended and whatnot. So I think going into that, you're just like, okay, this could be a little bit of a toss-up. Maybe we see the Lions bounce back so often from losses, but this one, just based on the injuries and whatnot in secondary, you're a little bit more like, okay, let's see how it plays out. But to see those guys out there dominating the way they did, shutting down the pass game, the Legion of Whom, as they're calling it now, which maybe a little bit disrespectful. I kind of like it. I think it fits the mentality out there. So
I think those guys have embraced that.
That's
probably
good. Too. But I mean, they got it done, man. And a lot of people probably doubted, Baker's going to throw for 300 and whatnot. But they really stepped up to the plate when called upon. And that's when Kevin Seifert kind of told us, the week leading into that game, like you hear this overnight celebrity, overnight success, all these stories, but really, that was just the night you learned about those guys, is what he told us. So, all those guys out there, Nick Whiteside, Thomas Harper, those guys that were getting it done in secondary really stood out to me.
Next man up, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that was a game that you can say it, but they lived it. And I think that's so huge for this team moving forward, that they now know that they've got some guys if needed to. And we know how it went last year. At the end of the year, they were needing guys to step up. Yeah. And that they've got guys that are experienced now that can do it, and guys they trust. I think that's huge for your football team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that trust goes a long way with this coaching staff. As long as you can go out there and execute when called upon, they don't need you to be a star. They have stars, and we saw those stars step up in that game. Aiden Hutchinson had 12 pressures, and when the pass rush and the coverage are working together like that, you can have a pretty good day. So I do think that trust goes a long way, and those guys definitely earn the trust of the staff.
All right, coming out of the bye week, one thing, first 7 games, Lions are 5-2. What's one thing that's impressed you about the start with them?
Yeah, I just think this group is so confident in who they are, and there's a lot of talk, coming into the season, like you got a couple new coordinators, Frank Ragnow retired, like is it going to look different? Are they going to take a step back? And I think most of us that cover the team probably didn't believe that narrative out there, but there was a lot of that out there. But I just think this group is so mentally strong, and you can see it because of just how they've been built over the years. They draft and develop these guys for a reason. They bring these guys in because they're mentally tough, and they're not worried about outside narratives. So a lot of teams might crumble with some of those expectations or the loss of so much coaching talent in one offseason. But I think the way these guys are wired, it's like, well, no, of course we're going to be just fine because this is what we do. You know? So I think that's kind of where my mind goes in a more broad landscape. But I've been really impressed with Jahmyr Gibbs, the season he's been putting together so far, and you saw it in that Monday night game. 218 yards of scrimmage. He was awesome. Hutch coming back to form the way he has, probably not a surprise to a lot of us, but there were some questions out there. You
had to see it.
You had to see it for sure, and he's been amazing. So. Just a lot of the same, this is just the standard that they've kind of showed over the years.
I love that clip of Gibbs laughing as he's going into the end zone.
How many guys would do that?
I know
just
it.
be laughing. Yeah.
It just shows the kind of mindset that how these guys love to have fun, but the confidence too. Like he knew he was gone. Yeah. Like he was laughing as soon as he hit that angle. He was gone. I love that about this football team. For me, it's the depth. You know, we talked about a little bit off the top. I think they've dealt with some injuries, early on this season, not to the extent they did last year, but Monday night showed the depth that this football team has, and that's so huge. It caught up with them at the end of last year, and certainly in that playoff loss. I think that's one thing I take from these first 7 games is you've had different guys step in a lot of different spots, and they've gotten pretty good production out of it. And I think that's huge for this football team moving forward, especially after what they went through last year, to know that they've got some guys that can step in and play, and this is a deep roster with 69 guys they feel pretty comfortable with. I think that's been huge through the first 7 games. All right, what's one thing coming out of the bye you maybe want to see, a little bit more consistency with, something they need to improve?
Yeah, it's hard to nitpick an offense that's, 3rd in the league in scoring, averaging 30-plus a game. But there are some instances, and it's been talked about a lot this week, just third down conversions. That's kind of been the big story. And Dan Campbell talked about it yesterday. Really, 3rd and medium, 3rd and long is kind of where they've struggled. I believe they're 7 of 36 on 3rd and long this year, which is not great. But I'm sure they spent a lot of time during the bye kind of self-scouting and finding ways to correct it. It might just be one thing here and there per play you can look at, like, oh man, if Jared had an extra half second on this throw, that's probably first down or even a touchdown. Little things like that can really affect everything that happens on a play if it's just one thing. So that's probably one thing I'm looking at. And then offensively, Jameson Williams, I would say, getting him the ball more consistently, because he's a talented player and they paid him and kept him here for a reason. And I think the little things he does, which is like, stretching the defense and, creating those opportunities for Saint and Sam Laporte over the middle, that's always going to be a part of this offense as long as he's out in the field. But just finding more ways to get him involved in the passing game is probably what I'd be looking at.
Yeah, those are 2 good ones. The third down one is really interesting to me because they were 47.6% last year. I think it was 3rd best in the league. I mean, they were converting almost half the time on third down. Well, Colton, that leads to more plays. That leads to maybe 10 more opportunities to get Jameson Williams the football. You know what I'm saying? They're at 37.6%. I think that's ranked 21st in the league. That's just not the standard that we're used to here. So the third down one, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a huge one for me. I just think it's going to make everything better offensively. If they can get that number closer to 45%, I think that's where you kind of want to be, your top 10 in the league at that point. I think that's going to be huge, not only for getting more plays, getting more guys involved, but just continuing drives. I think last year, Colton, they had 25 3-and-out drives on offense the entire year. Wow. They've got 16 through 7 games. And so, again, it's converting that third down, continuing that drive. I think that's the one thing I certainly want to see them improve on offensively. We'll talk to Jared Goff this week. It'll be interesting to see kind of what his take is on those third downs, too. It seems self-correctable. At least that's what Dan Campbell said. So you hope that's the deal going forward. All right, what concerns you the most about the Minnesota Vikings? Something tells me maybe number 18 is involved in this, or no. Look, when you're scouting this team, what concerns you about a 3-4 Minnesota team that is coming off a tough loss and really needs to kick this thing around if they're going to compete in the NFC? Maybe a little desperation even this early in the season.
Yeah, I think you just said it there. I mean, there's a dangerous thing about a desperate team.
Yeah.
And when their backs are against the wall. And I think Kevin O'Connell is a tremendous coach. And there's a reason the Vikings have been pretty successful under his watch, and he gets guys to buy in and play for him. And even when things look rough, they tend to kind of dig deep and find themselves in those moments. So I would not overlook this Vikings team. In terms of personnel, I definitely think it starts with Justin Jefferson. He strikes fear into a lot of defensive coordinators. I'm sure Shep will give us a line later in the week. Like, I'm losing sleep trying to think about ways to defend number 18 out there. So they're going to get J.J. McCarthy back, it sounds like. And I liked him a lot coming out of Michigan. Yeah. I still believe in him. I know it's been kind of rough early in his career, the injury, whatnot, but I think he's got a lot of talent. So I would not overlook the Vikings.
Lions get the 6th straight win over the Vikings if they do what Sunday night?
Yeah, I think it starts with pressuring a young quarterback like JJ, and the Vikings have not been great in handling pressure. I think they've allowed the 8th highest pressure rate among teams this year, and I think the 2nd or 3rd highest sack rate. So turning those pressures into sacks, I think that's going to be a big thing for this game. Hutch had 12 pressures in the last game, but no sacks. I think he's probably going to be able to peel back and get after JJ in a game like this. So if you can create pressure and kind of fluster a young quarterback like JJ, I think you can have success defensively. offensively, just sustain those drives, get to the red zone, convert, which they've done a really good job at this year in the red zone, turning those drives into touchdowns.
To your point about J.J. McCarthy, too, I think 3 interceptions in his first 2 games and a lost fumble. You know, I view him kind of a gunslinger a little bit. He wasn't that at Michigan because they ran the ball. So, but now he gets some weapons on the outside, and he's got a chance. And obviously one of the great minds offensively in Kevin O'Connell. But I think he'll put the ball at risk. At least he showed that those first 2 weeks. He's still young. I know it's a second year, but it'll only be his 3rd start. And so I think that's a good point by you if you can get after him. To me, too, I think a key there, you look at their defense, and they're going to pressure you. You know, they lead the league in blitz percentage at 42%. They're going to get after it. I think the one great thing is Jared Goff, a 128 passer rating against the blitz this year, Colton.
Pretty
I mean, he's been pretty good. And they can protect Jared. He's shown, you know, the willingness and the ability to get the ball out of his hands into weapons in space. And you put J-Mo and St. Brown and Laporta, some of those guys one-on-one. I think it's going to be pretty good for the Lions. All right. I'm curious your opinion about this. The ESPN rankings came out this week, and it's got the Colts number 1, the Lions number 2, Philadelphia 3, Buffalo 4, Tampa Bay 5, Kansas City 6, and Green Bay 7. Is that a little high for Green Bay, Colton? Do you agree with kind of the top 5 there, Colts, Lions, Philly, Buffalo, Tampa, or does somebody else maybe deserve to kind of be in that mix?
I think it's about right. I mean, if you're just looking at records, what are they, 5-1-1 now? I mean, that's pretty good. It's hard to beat. There are a lot of teams with a better record than that. The tie game was kind of weird to me, watching them tie the Cowboys.
It's tying the Cowboys and losing to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird, but then they've got some other really good wins, obviously Detroit being one of those.
I feel like they're pretty inconsistent. You don't know which Green Bay team's going to show up, where a lot of those teams maybe higher on that list are more consistent. You can know what you're going to get week to week. Chiefs are hitting their stride now. They look like a great team. So I think for the most part I would agree with that. The Colts, I'm still not convinced. I need to see a little bit more from the Colts too. That's the only thing. But it's hard to find another team to put them above right now.
You look at the NFC, and Dan talked about that this week, is I think there's 9 teams that are at least 500 or better in the NFC. But this is the month usually where you start to see some separation. Detroit's obviously got big road games in Washington and Philly. Going to have Green Bay on Thanksgiving at the end of the month. Is this kind of where we see the teams separate themselves in November?
I think so. The real teams will rise to the top. The pretenders will fall to the bottom. I think that's just how it works when you get to those later months in the season. And again, depth will be tested. Like, injuries are starting to pile up around the league. So I think the teams that are equipped with the rosters and the talent and just the belief in themselves, I guess, in a team like this Lions team that just has so much trust from top to bottom, I think those teams tend to rise when you get later in the season. So I do think this is probably a big month for separation.
All right, let's finish with this one. Great division matchup Sunday. What's the matchup you'll be watching the most? What's the one you're eager to see?
Yeah, I mean, going back to last year, that Week 18 finale, that was a lot of fun between Amik Robertson and Justin Jefferson. So those guys go back to college.
They go way back. High school, yeah. I had Amik on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about like doing Nike camps against Justin Jefferson and doing LSU camp against him. They go back a long ways, and that was one of the more underrated performances last year.
It was awesome.
Week 18. And Terry and Arnold is back, but I would probably think it's going to be Amik over there given what he did last year. And that's going to be a Justin Jefferson that's very motivated too, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, again, Vikings backs are against the wall. But Amik, I mean, man, he's a dog, man. When that mentality comes out, when the lights come on, he rises to the occasion. So that's a matchup I'm definitely interested in watching.
Well, it should be a fun matchup Sunday, division rival. As November breaks and these teams try to separate themselves, Lions will be looking for 2 in a row, get that record to 6-2 and among the NFC leaders. He is Colton Pouncy, does a great job with The Athletic. You can check everything out from him there, and we'll be right back with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Welcome back to the Twentyman Huddle podcast. The man next to me needs a little introduction. He is Amon-Ra St. Brown, the all-pro wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in the league. Amon-Ra, thanks for taking the time.
Yes,
I appreciate
you having me.
I always love when you come on once a year here. First off, happy belated birthday.
Appreciate it.
26. And you spent that last week. I thought it was really cool. Your first Red Wings game. How was that experience?
It was good. It was fun. It was my first hockey game ever. So I've heard a lot of stories about you got to go to a hockey game. It's unlike any other sport. I was like, all right, I'll try it. So I told Ellie I want to go to a hockey game this year, Red Wings game particularly, and they set it up. And the first thing I noticed when I got in there was like, oh, it's pretty chilly in here. I didn't know it gets that cold in a hockey game. So I had a jacket on, luckily, but it was cold inside. They got me hooked up with a jersey and everything, and got to pull the horn. Watch the game. It was fun. They won.
You get a more appreciation for how fast that game moves when you go and watch it live versus on TV, don't you?
Yeah, I didn't even know they sub during the game. They just sub
45 seconds.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, your shift is like 45 seconds because it's so intense and you're skating so hard.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
New appreciation for those guys?
For sure, 100%.
All right, another little birdie told me you are a big Halloween guy, and since it is Halloween week, 2 questions. What are you going as this week? Are you in Brooklyn?
Yeah.
You get a couple's deal?
We do. Yeah, I'm going to be a werewolf, and she's going to be Little Red Riding Hood, I think it is.
Okay, yeah.
And we got a little team party, so that should be fun.
What's the best Halloween costume you ever had?
I would say the one I was most excited about. I remember I was a kid. It was a Power Ranger. I couldn't wait
Which
to
color?
put it on. It was a blue Power Ranger.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get it. I remember I got it at Target. I put it on. As soon as we got out of Target, I was running to the car and I just slipped and fell right on my face. But that was one of my favorite costumes. And last year, I got the face paint done and all with Chucky. That was pretty cool.
What is it about Halloween that's always been a thing for you?
I think it's just a time to have fun, dress up, wear something out of the ordinary, and just, celebrate, just have a good time.
What about those black unis?
They're sick.
You love those.
I love those, yeah.
They look so good on Monday
do.
night.
Yeah, they look nice.
Where you're at team-wise, 5-2, you got a chance to kind of reset after the bye. How important is that bye for you guys, especially where it landed, middle of the week? We talk to players and coaches all the time, in middle of the year, I should say, and they say you want that right in the middle of the season. You guys have been unfortunate to have some early season ones. How perfect was the timing of this, and just how refreshed do you feel? Is it good to kind of reset the body for a little bit?
Yeah, I think we feel great. Like you said, I feel like the past few years it's been a little earlier in the year. So it's nice to have it at this point in the season just because I feel like, some guys are beat up, get some time to rest, recover, get back, get some time away from football, whether that's with your families, with your friends, whatever it is. Take your mind off before we get on this, next stretch where we got like 4 games, and we got a Thanksgiving game, then we got Cowboys right after that. So we got a lot of games back to back. We got a Christmas game coming up. So a lot of time that you spend with family, usually sometimes we don't get to spend because we have games. So during this bye, that was a perfect time to get all that out the way, and then just really get back to ball and get on this last home stretch.
Was it a chill bye for you? Did you get away a
yeah,
little bit?
It was pretty cool. My girl threw, it was my birthday last Friday, so my girl threw me a surprise, and me and like 20 of my friends and their girlfriends and wives and whatnot, we went to Vegas. And,
oh, nice.
Yeah, we had a blast, so it was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right, Amon-Ra, you're 7th right now in receptions with 50. I think you're 9th in the NFL in yards, 1st in touchdowns. Do you feel like you're having one of your better seasons? I mean, statistically you are, and we know where you end up every year, but it just seems like from some of the big catches, the big performances, it seems like you're on the top of your game right now.
I would like to think so. I just feel like this league, there's so many guys, there's so many good players. So many good receivers, and honestly, it's like every year there's a couple receivers that maybe you didn't think of the year before that are in the top 5 categories of stuff. So that's something I feel like this sport is so amazing because no matter what you've done the year before, you got to prove it each and every year. And there's teams that are good the year before that aren't good. This year there's teams that were good last year that are still good. I mean, there's so much parity in the NFL that. Even as a player, you gotta make sure you prepare each and every week throughout the off season because each and every week, teams are game planning. If you have a good week the week before, they're gonna do everything they can to stop you that next week. So it just gets harder and harder the better you play, and so you respect the guys that can do it each and every week, and that's always been my thing since I've been here is I want to be consistent. I want to be able to produce each and every year, each and every week, and help my team win.
And that's huge too because I think the receiver position maybe more than any other position, you're seeing guys step in and have an impact early in their careers. Egbuka, who you guys saw a couple weeks ago, is a perfect example. To your point, if you want to stay up in the upper echelon of a receiver, that consistency is so huge, isn't it?
It's huge. I mean, you look at a guy like Justin Jefferson. He does it. I mean, each and every year, each and every week, he's whether the team's winning or not, I feel like he's going out there and competing, and he's putting up yards. He's moving the chains. He's scoring touchdowns. Jamar Chase, Mike Evans. I mean, guys that have been doing it for so long. It's that consistency, I think, that really separates them. They do it each and every year. And so, for me, that's something that I like to, think myself at. I want to, continue to be consistent and be there for my teammates. And most importantly, win games. I think that's the biggest thing. We've been doing that. We've been doing a pretty good job of that here in Detroit for the past couple of years. So as long as we're winning, man, I think everything else is going to take care of itself.
You're in that group, though, of guys that you just mentioned. I hope you know that. And it was funny. I listened to an interview of Kevin O'Connell, the Minnesota Vikings head coach. You guys play on Sunday, and he said the exact same thing. He was just like the consistency of that guy, just every week. When you hear that from outside people, that's got to make you smile, because that's what you were talking about, right? That's what you want to be, that guy. It's 100 catches. You guys win football games every year, and you're a big part of that.
Yeah, 100%. I think, the player can be as consistent as he wants, and you're going to respect a player that's, putting up numbers, stats, playing well on Sundays. But I think when you add, the team winning, it's a whole nother factor. I mean, you remember guys from teams that win and that are playing well. So that's the biggest thing. I think winning cures everything. Winning heals everything. And a team that's winning, I mean, you're going to look at their players and be like, their players are better than the other players that aren't winning, teams that aren't winning. So for us, I think our team is super unselfish. The guys that we have in our locker room on our team, all we want to do is win, no matter who's catching the ball, who's scoring the touchdowns. We want to help, whoever we can to get open, block, and I think that's what makes us so special. And so for us, it's like whatever we got to do each and every week to win is what we're going to try to do.
Yeah, 100%. The celebration with Gibbs, the Superman, Spider-Man one. How did that one come about? And have you seen the shirts and some of the stuff?
Yeah.
Do you own a shirt yet? Because I thought it was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Jeff, our photographer, I think got a great shot of it. Do you collect those things, like the photos, the shirts, all that kind of fun stuff that comes from you guys and in the fun times you have once you guys get in the end zone?
Yeah, I think so. That celebration actually came from Jameer. It was his idea.
Okay.
He brought it up to me like 3 weeks ago. I think it was maybe Bengals week or maybe even the week before it. But, I didn't score those 2 weeks. Jameer scored, I think, one of those weeks, but he had another celebration in mind that he wanted to do. So he did that. And so we never really got off. And then I told Jameer, I reminded him Monday night, I said, if I score, I'm going to do the 6-7 because it was my 6 touchdowns. I had 6 touchdowns and that was my 7. So I told Jameer, if I score first, I'm going to do that. But if I score a second one, we're going to do that celebration. I said, and if you score, we're going to do it right away. And so Jameer said, let's do it. And so I scored the first one. I did the 6-7. And then, Jameer scored after that. And I was running down because I knew it was going to happen.
Of course, you had to run 70
yards
to get to the celebration.
Right. I'm chasing him down. I'm like, here we go. And so we got the celebration. I knew the picture would be great as soon as
it was
we did
such a perfect shot.
Yeah. And so I actually just came out with my own shirt, too, of a little design, too.
Oh, really?
Of that, that touchdown we had. So I have
where can people get it?
They can get it on stbrownshop.com. It's a link is in my Instagram bio. But yeah, I mean, I have pictures on my phone. I wouldn't say I collect memorabilia, but I have all the pictures on my phone, of all the celebrations, the videos and stuff.
You guys take that seriously, though. Yeah, I mean, you like it, don't you?
Yeah, I think it makes it fun. I feel like for me as a kid growing up, I always wanted to celebrate when I scored. I watch the NFL. I see Chad. I see Deshaun Jackson. I see all these guys celebrating when they score. And when I was a kid, I was at Pop Warner. They threw a flag for anything. You can't do no celebration. I was like, this is kind of boring. Got to high school, couldn't do no celebrating. I was like, this is still boring. College, I feel like now in college, I celebrate more than they did when I was there.
Getting a little better.
Right.
Yeah.
But when I was in college, it was like, you can't really celebrate either. It's a flag. So I told myself when I get to the league and I scored, I'm going to make sure I have fun. Like, I've always wanted to celebrate in the end zone and do cool stuff and funny stuff. And so now that I'm here, I mean, we go so hard throughout the week. We're hitting each other during the play. We're taking hits. So when we score, it's a time for everyone to have fun.
And you guys certainly do. A couple more for you, Amon-Ra. Look, offensively, you guys are third in scoring. You're 8th in total offense. But I talk to a lot of guys on offense, and you guys collectively feel like there's more left on the table, don't you?
Yeah,
I mean, that
sure.
You guys haven't even reached your heights. I know third down is an area Dan Campbell talked about this week. You're at 37%. I think last year you were around 47%. That's just kind of one statistically that stands out. But do you guys feel like there's still a lot more on the bone offensively?
I think so. I think there's a lot more. I think just execution-wise as an offense. I think we can be, a lot better. Third down is one of those points that, we got to be better at, and we will be. But I think just in general, I think we've been taking care of the ball pretty well. But other than that, third down, red zone, I feel like we've gotten stopped in the red zone a few times. When we get there, we want to be 100% with touchdowns. No 3 and outs. Obviously, that's big. Getting that first down, then just being explosive. I think that's the biggest thing. We want to be an explosive offense. Those 18-play drives, they're cool to have every once in a while, but you'd rather not be out there for 18 plays because
you'd rather be chasing behind 70 yards behind Gibbs.
Everyone's tired, especially the linemen. So just being explosive, being executing, good communication, no penalties, no negative plays, and I think we'll be just fine.
Is Jared playing at an all-pro at an MVP caliber level? I mean, he's second in completion percentage, second in passer rating. I think he's third in touchdowns. Obviously had the bye, so he's going to be behind a little bit from some of those guys that have played 8 games. Is that connection between you and him is so good, and you guys have worked so hard at it. Now it seems to be really paying off. He's having a terrific year. You think he's in that conversation?
For sure. I think he's. With the way he's been playing, he's top in the league in my eyes. The way he, his timing, his ball placement, his command of the offense, him taking care of the football, winning games, just everything that he's done this year, even last year, just since he's been here, I feel like he's only gotten better each and every year. And I think for us, he's without him, I don't know what offense would look like. So we're lucky to have him. He's one of the best in this league, and as long as he's here, and for us, I know, I'd love for him to win MVP, win all those, all the awards that he can. But I know the biggest thing that he wants to do is win a Super Bowl.
Wants to win a Super Bowl.
And that's I think what we all want to do. And so that's the biggest thing is we just got to keep winning games, and all the rest will come.
Congratulations on the podcast.
Appreciate it.
By the way, you and your brother really do a good job with that. Who's been the favorite guest so far
this year? That's a good question. We just had Michael Pittman on yesterday, so that's gonna come out this week. I would say favorite guest this year. I love having my dad on every year. I feel like we do him once a year.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, he's fun. Demo and Jameer. I think Demo is.
I had Demo on a couple weeks ago on this one.
Yeah, Demo's he's a.
I still
gotta
get Gibbs on you.
You haven't?
No, I haven't. He's been dodging me.
Really?
Yeah, we got to say something. You got to say something.
We got to get him on. I love Demo. I love Jameer too, but Demo just, he cracks me up. He's a jokester.
The driest humor ever. Like you don't see it coming.
Yeah.
Well, I think the podcast's great. So you can catch that. You can catch him catching balls Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings at Ford Field. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Keep this thing rolling. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Twentyman the Huddle podcast. I am now joined by Kevin Seifert. Does a great job covering the Minnesota Vikings and the league for ESPN. Kevin's been doing it at a high level for a long time. So you need any Minnesota Vikings information, he is your guy. Kevin, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having, Tim.
All right, well, let's talk about this one. First off, a little bit different situation. We've been so used to the last couple of years, these two teams fighting right down to the end of the year, terrific records, this meaning the division championship. And this is a Minnesota Vikings team that sits at 3-4 coming into this one. Just lost to the Chargers, I believe, last week, 37-10, not their best outing. They sit at 3-4. I don't want to say desperation in week 9, Kevin, but do you get a sense that this is kind of leaning toward that must win with 9 teams in the NFC currently at 500 or better?
Yeah, I think a lot of their games are going to be must wins. If you look at their strength of schedule, really starting this week and moving to the end of the year, it's the most difficult in the NFL, according to ESPN's FPI, Football Power Index. And so whether it's playing the Lions twice, whether it's playing the Packers twice, some of it has to do with the division. They also play Baltimore with Lamar Jackson probably coming back. And so the Vikings have gotten themselves in this position where they're going to be up against it pretty much every week starting this week. But it's going to be the case for the remainder of the season, I think.
Do you think J.J. McCarthy can give them a spark? What did you like about the first 2 weeks there with him under center? Kevin O'Connell, obviously, is a guy that's kind of been the quarterback whisperer the last few years. Going to get J.J. back. Is that a good thing for Minnesota? What'd you like about him early in the season?
Well, and people in your area know this from his time at University of Michigan. I mean, he's got some spunk to him now. Like that first game, the opening game of the season for the Vikings on Monday night in Chicago, like he didn't play that great. The whole team didn't play that great in the first 3 quarters. And then he just leads this furious comeback where he throws 2 touchdown passes. He runs for a third off a read option of all things that really hasn't been in the Vikings playbook. And we saw that moxie. We saw why he almost always wins as a starter going back to high school. I think when the season began, his teams going back to high school were like 64-3. And so and obviously it's not just because of him, but there's something to be said when you play over that period of time and your teams are always winning. And so we absolutely saw that competitiveness, the ability to kind of raise things to the level that's necessary. But following week, it was again pretty bad. And then he hurt his ankle. And so we really haven't seen a whole lot of him. I mean, I think he's played 95 snaps. He's thrown maybe 30, 40 passes tops. Didn't play at all last year. Obviously didn't even practice in the regular season because he was on IR the whole time. And then he really hasn't practiced here for most of the past 6 weeks. So we really haven't seen a ton of him. But in terms of the things that I liked, I think that's the number one thing. And I think in terms of his competitiveness and the rest of it is, it appears like he is a 22-year-old trying to play NFL quarterback without a whole lot of experience in college throwing the ball and without a whole lot of practice time. And so he needs to play. And that's the bottom line with him. And so there's going to be some development in real time going on here for the remainder of the season. And that's just the position they're in with him.
You know, Kevin, looking at some of the statistics leading into this one, you talk about what J.J. McCarthy did have in college. That was a run game at Michigan, and they did that a ton. Really uncharacteristic seeing this Minnesota offense. I think 34 yards rushing last week, the lowest in the league this year. I think they ranked 30th, correct me if I'm wrong, in rushing going into the season. Really uncharacteristic. That's something with J.J. coming back and the inexperience you talked about, that's got to get better for them, doesn't it? They've got to support J.J. a little bit better with that run game.
You would have to hope so. Aaron Jones, who started the year as their starting tailback, got hurt his hamstring in the second week, and he hasn't been he just got back last Thursday, so he missed 4 games, and so he's now back, and that should help. Jordan Mason actually has been a pretty good addition from San Francisco. I mean, he's a hard-nosed runner, a lot of yards after contact. They've had a lot of offensive line issues. A lot of injuries, first and foremost. Christian Darrisaw has not always been able to finish games because of his recovery from that ACL, MCL he had last year. Ryan O'Neal has been in and out of the lineup because of a sprained MCL. They lost their center, Ryan Kelly. He's had 2 concussions already this year, and now he's on IR, and they're using a converted guard and Blake Brandel at center. And so there hasn't always been certainly not the ideal situation at offensive line. In some cases, just a really leaky one. And so that's a little bit of the running game issues. And the other part is, you mentioned Kevin O'Connell earlier, and he has done great things in the passing game. And that's kind of his philosophy. And, I think he would have to make a significant turn in terms of like just committing to the run from a play calling perspective, from a game planning perspective, from a scheme perspective, for it to make a sort of a material difference here. And it's probably what they're going to need. I mean, if they're going to ask J.J. McCarthy to do the same thing that they were asking Carson Wentz to do here in the past 5 games, or they asked Sam Darnold to do last year, or Kirk Cousins before that, then that's going to only add to the level of difficulty that they're already asking of him.
Kevin, what do you think is a key matchup for Minnesota heading into this game Sunday? They go in Detroit, upset the Lions, get back to 500. If they do what really well Sunday afternoon?
Well, it's not dissimilar from some other times and other opponents against the Lions, but the past few games, the Vikings have been really had a hard time against the run. Their run defense has just been really bad. Their pass rush has not been able to get through either, and so there's been a lot of time for people to get open. But against the Lions, and this has been the case in several of their matchups, like if they're not able to stop the run against the Lions, which they haven't been able to do here in the past few games, then they're going to be in for a long day. And so I think that's the first matchup I'll look at, is if their interior, they went out and signed Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave to be new defensive tackles for them. Those guys have had kind of mixed results, and they've been using a lot of younger players to mix in there. A guy named Jalen Redmond has actually been a find. He was in the XFL a few years ago, and now he's here in the NFL. But for the most part, they've struggled to stop teams from running the ball, especially when they're not ahead. I mean, that's the other part of their defense. Is last year they led the league in plays defensively when they had a lead, and there's certain ways you can play when you have the lead that you can't when you're trailing or tied. And so they haven't had that nearly as much either. But the first thing I'll be looking at is to see if the Vikings can stop the Lions running game. And if they can't do that, it's hard to imagine that anything else will be successful for them.
Yeah, because then they get into some situations where they get teams behind the sticks. They're so good, obviously lead the league in blitz percentage at 42%. They can get after the quarterback, but in order to do that, Kevin, we both know you got to stop the run first so you can get into those favorable situations. That's what they want to do, right? They want to get you in second and long and third and long. They want a double A gap blitz look, and they want to come after you. But they've got to get to that point, right?
Yes, and the other part against the Lions, at least, is they when they're in those situations, they like to try to create, whether it's dropping out at the last second or they're going to blitz, they're not going to blitz. Harrison Smith's on the line. Now he's dropping back into a cover 2 or something. And so they like to try to confuse the quarterback, essentially. And Jared Goff has not been one who's been susceptible to that. He's seen it before. He's a veteran guy and a smart quarterback, as you know. And it definitely works on some of the younger quarterbacks that you face. But that's been something that they've also not had as much success against with the Lions when they play the Lions as some other teams, is that I think Jared Goff is way above the curve in terms of figuring out some of those mental games that the Vikings defense plays.
To your point, 128 is Goff's passer rating this year when he's blitzed. So good point by you. He's great at identifying it, seeing it, and getting the ball out of his hands. And that young offensive line in Detroit's playing pretty well too. What's maybe a key matchup? We talked about the run game. Is there maybe an individual matchup? I know last year that Week 18 game, the Meek Robertson versus Justin Jefferson was such a terrific match up for Detroit. They had to get that performance from Meek, and they did. Those two will probably see each other again this week with DJ Reed not expected to be back this week for the Lions. Is there one that jumps out to you maybe that's important?
I would say, whether you want to say Kelvin Shepherd or whoever is sort of coming up with the defensive scheme, when you have a young quarterback like JJ McCarthy, I mean, they're trying to find ways to give him easy throws and easy answers against whatever the Lions do. But the Lions, this is not their first rodeo against a young quarterback, and they'll have a lot of things up their sleeve as well. So how much, because JJ hasn't played in we're looking at almost 7 weeks now. And so he's just in terms of getting into the rhythm and timing of the NFL speed of the game, all that is kind of back to square one. And so there are a lot of things that I could foresee the Lions trying and maybe succeeding at when they're facing a quarterback with the inexperience level of JJ McCarthy. And so from an offensive perspective, how much is McCarthy going to be able to sort of sift through that and get the Vikings to where they need to be? And not only mentally, because I do think he's pretty good. He knows the offense, and I think he's pretty good at reading defenses, but there just hasn't been a lot of opportunities for him to quickly process that into action. And so he's been late on some throws. He's been, a little hesitant to make the decision until the receiver pops open. And sometimes that's too late in terms of the timing of this offense. So I'll be interested to see the extent to which the Lions try to attack JJ McCarthy. They just sit back and wait for him to take the safe plays, or will they try to take those away and see if he makes a mistake looking elsewhere?
It should be a fun matchup. Injury-wise, Minnesota's pretty good shape. Anything of concern heading in?
They're getting healthier. I think they expect both of those tackles that I talked about, Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, to be able to play. The one injury issue that we're still tracking is Andrew Van Ginkel, who's been a really successful, pass rusher. and just all around defensive player for them last year, and really hasn't played a whole lot this year because of a neck injury. And he's not on injury reserve. He's going through practice on a limited basis. That's one that may or may not be able to get to fruition in time, but he's the guy to keep an eye on this week.
Perfect. Kevin, appreciate you. As always, do such a great job covering everything Minnesota Vikings for ESPN. Safe travels up to Detroit. We'll see you on Sunday, my friend.
Okay, Tim. Thank you.